Let's be real for a second. The digital world that we all live in, well, it's at a critical turning point. We are being absolutely flooded with AI-generated content, and it's creating this huge problem for the one thing social media platforms just can't live without, our trust. And that brings us to a really serious question. With our trust just collapsing all around us, can social media, as we know it, actually survive this new reality? Before we try to answer that, I want you to just look at this number. 62%. Just let that sink in for a moment. So what is that 62%? Well, that's how often people in studies could tell the difference between a real photo and one made by AI. Think about that. It is barely better than flipping a coin. It perfectly captures the massive confusion we're all dealing with right now. This really gets us to the heart of the whole issue, the trust crisis. We are living in an age of basically infinite content, but we're speeding towards zero trust. Let's break down exactly why that is. You see, there's this fundamental imbalance happening. On one side, you've got generative AI, which has made it pretty much free to create an endless stream of content. But on the other side, our ability to tell what's real from what's fake is just crumbling, and that's completely eroding our trust in everything we see online. This whole imbalance actually has a name, and it's a really key idea for understanding what's going on. It's called the signal-to-noise collapse. Okay, let's unpack that a little. The noise, that's the endless flood of low-value, AI-generated, or just copied content. The signal, that's the good stuff, the authentic, valuable information we're all actually looking for. The collapse happens when the noise gets so loud, so overwhelming, that we can't find the signal anymore. And one of the biggest things contributing to all this noise is what you could call the duplication crisis. Here's how it works. A post gets popular, someone copies it, they change it just enough to fool the algorithm, and then they blast it all over the network. This whole loop creates this false sense of agreement or importance, but it adds absolutely zero new information. So what happens if we just let this keep going? What are the real-world consequences if these platforms don't step in and do something about this signal collapse? Well, the costs are pretty steep. First, we lose trust in the big platforms, and we retreat into smaller, private groups, think WhatsApp or Discord. Then, the social media platforms themselves start to degrade. They're full of content, yeah, but empty of any real insight. And finally, the whole digital world starts to fragment into these little, walled-off communities. And listen, this isn't some far-off threat. It's happening right now. Just look at Facebook. It's already seeing a kind of fatigue among younger people. The time they spend on those generic feeds, it's going down. The burnout is real. But this isn't all doom and gloom. There is a path forward. It's just going to require a pretty fundamental change in how these platforms work. You can think of it as the great shift, a shift towards verification. For years, right, the big focus was on identity verification. You know, the little blue check mark that says you are who you say you are. But the new foundation has to be content verification. It asks a much more important question. Is this piece of content authentic, and can I trust it? So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, it's really built on three main pillars. First, using technology like digital watermarks to prove that a piece of content is real. Second, putting clear fact checks right there in your feed. And third, and this one is so important, changing the algorithms to prioritize content from credible, trustworthy sources. You know, this might feel brand new, but it's not. If you look at history, pretty much all information systems go through these cycles. We've just come out of the saturation phase. That's the high noise, low trust part. And now we are right at the beginning of the correction phase, where verification becomes the main tool for survival. So what does this corrected, totally transformed digital world actually look like? What is the future of trust going to be on these platforms? Well, we have to start by getting our heads around the AI paradox. See, AI is what got us into this mess in the first place by creating content overload and this whole authenticity crisis. But, and here's the twist, AI is also a critical part of the solution. It can help us filter, verify, and find that signal in all the noise. It's kind of both the problem and the cure. This is all going to lead to a huge split in the content economy. At the very top, you'll have valuable, human-led, verified stuff from experts. At the bottom, you'll just have a sea of AI spam. And all that content stuck in the middle, the generic, unverified stuff, that's what's going to really struggle to get seen. So let's circle back to our original question. Is social media dying? The verdict is no, it's not dying. It's transforming. It's growing up, really. It's moving from that wild, open, unfiltered world we used to know into a more structured place where trust and verification are basically the price you pay to play. In this new world, we have to completely rethink what's actually valuable, because the thing that's truly scarce is no longer content. Come on, we are drowning in it. The new scarcity, the new currency of this whole digital age is trust. That's what's going to decide value and command our attention from here on out. And this all leads to one final, really important question for every single one of us. In this new era of infinite information and deepfakes, what are you building your trust on?
Professionals lobby, grow, connect, succeed.